Up till now, we have been assuming that users are actually authenticated when carrying out tasks that requires users to be authenticated. We need a way to always make sure of this and not just assume. There are a couple of ways we can achieve this. Since we already have a way to get authenticated users, the easiest way to achieve this will be to check if the authenticated user object is not null in the resolvers. Let's implement this for the createThread resolver. So before we create a thread, we will perform a check. If not authenticated user. Then we throw an error message, which will be of the type authentication error. With the message, you are not authenticated. Then we need to pull authentication error. Let's give this a try. Let's make sure we are not logged in. And try to run the mutation. As you can see, we get the error message because we are not authenticated. While this is easy and quick to implement, it will lead to code redundancy, as we need to duplicate this same logic in every resolvers that requires users to be authenticated. Another approach we can take is using middleware through packages such as GraphQL middleware or GraphQL Shield. But for this course, we will be using a completely different approach, which is through using custom directives. So we will create a custom directive with our implementation logic and then apply the directive to as many fields as possible that requires it. So I'm going to get rid of this. Then I'll create a new directory, which we will call Directives. Then inside the directory, I'll create a new file called auth.js. This will be a class which we will call authDirective. This class will extend another class called schemaDirectiveVisitor. And we need to get this class from Apollo Server Express. Remember I said directive can be used in multiple places, such as fields and types. This auth directive will only be used on fields. So we need to define a visit field definition method. This will accept the field the directive is being added to. So field. Then from the field, we can get the default resolver for the field. Const resolve equals default field resolver. Next, we define our implementation for the resolver. Field.resolve equals function. This accepts the same set of arguments as the regular resolver, such as the parent, the argument, the context, and info. So we are going to spread the arguments instead of specifying each of them. Then we can get the authenticated user, auth user, from the context, which will be the third argument. Now we can perform the check to see if the auth user is not null. That is, if not auth user throw new authentication error. Then finally, we apply the resolver, return resolve dot apply. Then we pass the arguments. Let's not forget to pull in authentication error. Now we have the implementation logic for our directive, but we can't use it just yet. We need to tell GraphQL that we are creating our own custom directive. We can do that in our schema. So inside root.js, in the types definition directory, we will define our custom directive using the directive keyword. Directive, then the name of our directive, which will be @out. Then where we want to define the directive on, which will be on fields, as earlier mentioned. That is field definition. All we have to do now is make Apollo server aware of this directive. So we'll add a new property, which is schema directive. Then out, which must match the name of the directive. Then the directive implementation, which is out directive. Before we pull this in, let's create a new file inside the directives directory. Inside here, we'll pull in the out directive. So now we can pull in the index file here. So let's test this out. Let's rerun this. We get the error cannot read property ID of null because we are trying to get the ID of the authenticated user, which is null because we are not authenticated. So let's make use of the @out directive. @out. If we head back here and rerun the mutation, we should get the appropriate error message, as you can see. So now we can make use of the @out directive in every place we need authentication. For update thread, we make use of the directive as well as in the user object. Then on the me query as well. We will do the same thing for reply.